My name is Jake Miller. I'm 28 years old, and I work the night shift at a Walmart in a small town just outside Tulsa, Oklahoma. It's not exactly the most thrilling job, but it pays the bills. Most nights, it's just stocking shelves and dealing with the occasional late-night shopper. But one night, something happened that I can't explain. It's been haunting me ever since. It was a Wednesday night, around 2 a.m., when I noticed a little kid wandering near the toy section. He couldn't have been older than 5. His clothes were dirty, and his face looked pale, almost like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't seem scared, but something about the way he was just standing there, staring at the shelves, made me uneasy. I approached him slowly, trying not to startle him. "Hey there, buddy," I said gently. "Are you lost? Where are your parents?" The kid didn't answer. He just looked up at me with wide, terrified eyes and pointed towards the back of the store. I felt a chill run down my spine, but I didn't want to ignore a kid in need. "All right," I said, "let's go find them." I followed the boy as he led me through the aisles, past the electronics section, and into the back of the store where the stockroom was. The further we went, the more uneasy I felt. The store was quiet, too quiet. The fluorescent lights buzzed above us, and the air felt heavy, almost suffocating. When we reached the stockroom, the boy stopped at the door. I looked down at him, but before I could ask anything, he was gone. Just vanished. My heart pounded in my chest. I called out his name, though I didn't know what it was, my voice echoing in the empty stockroom. Nothing. Just silence. I ran back to the front of the store and found the security guard on duty. I told him what had happened, but he looked at me like I was crazy. "There haven't been any reports of a missing kid," he said, his voice calm but dismissive. I wasn't convinced. I insisted he check the security footage. He finally agreed, and we went to the office to review it. What I saw on that screen made my stomach turn. There I was, walking through the store, heading towards the stockroom. But I was alone. No kid. Just me. I felt sick. Had I imagined the whole thing? Was I losing it? I went back to work, trying to shake the feeling, but something was wrong. Later that night, around 3 a.m., my phone rang. It was an unknown number. I answered, thinking it might be something work-related. But instead, a child's voice whispered on the other end of the line. "Help me." My blood turned to ice. I tried to speak, but the line went dead. I stared at my phone, my hands shaking. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to call the police, but what would I tell them? That I'd seen a kid who didn't exist? Heard a voice over the phone? They'd think I was crazy. The next morning, as I was about to leave my shift, the police showed up at the store. They told me a child's body had been found behind the building, hidden near the dumpsters. My heart sank. I asked them what the kid looked like, and when they gave me the description, I felt like I was going to be sick. It matched the boy I had seen. I didn't tell the police what happened. I couldn't. They wouldn't believe me. But ever since that night, the calls haven't stopped. I keep getting calls from different unknown numbers. Every time I answer, I hear a different child's voice. Sometimes they just cry. Other times they whisper things I can't quite understand. I don't know who these kids are or why they're calling me, but I can't shake the feeling that they're connected to that boy, to something terrible that happened in this place. I've tried changing my number, even quitting my job at Walmart, but it doesn't matter. The calls follow me wherever I go. My name is Alana Moore. I'm 34, and I've worked at a Walmart in Lexington, Kentucky for about 6 years now. My life's been pretty quiet for the most part, clocking in, stocking shelves, and occasionally dealing with an unruly customer. But all of that changed one night a few weeks ago, and since then, nothing has felt normal. It was a regular night shift, quiet and uneventful. I was standing near the checkout lanes when a woman came in. She looked to be in her mid-40s, disheveled and distant, like she was somewhere far away in her mind. She didn't say a word, just grabbed a rope from the hardware aisle and made her way toward the back of the store. I thought it was strange, but people come in at odd hours for all kinds of things, so I didn't pay much attention. The next morning, I got a call from my manager asking me to come in early. Something had happened in the garden section. When I arrived, the police were there, and the entire area was taped off. That same woman, the one who'd bought the rope, had hung herself from one of the metal beams. I felt sick to my stomach. I couldn't believe it. And worse, I was the one asked to clean up the area before the store opened again. The whole time, I couldn't stop thinking about how I'd seen her just hours before, and I hadn't done anything. Maybe if I had asked her if she was okay, things would have turned out differently. Weeks passed, but the memory of that night stuck with me. And then, the strange things started happening. Shelves would collapse without warning, objects would fall to the floor with no one around, and that same rope, the one from the suicide, would show up in different parts of the store. One day it was in the electronics section, the next day in the break room. No one knew how it got there. I tried to brush it off as coincidence, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Then, one night, during another quiet shift, I heard it, a soft humming coming from the garden section. My skin prickled. It sounded like a lullaby, low and haunting. I walked back there, my heart pounding, and that's when I saw her. The woman was standing in the same spot where she had died, her face twisted in pain. Her eyes locked onto mine, and I froze. I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. "You didn't stop me," she whispered, her voice echoing in the empty aisles. And then she was gone. I ran out of there as fast as I could, barely able to breathe. I told my manager what I saw, but of course, they didn't believe me. I was told to take a few days off, to rest. But no amount of rest could erase what I saw. The guilt started to eat away at me. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. I kept hearing her voice in my head, over and over again. "You didn't stop me." A week later, I found myself standing in that same garden section, staring at the spot where she had hung herself. The rope was there again, coiled neatly on the floor, waiting. I couldn't take it anymore. The weight of it all, the guilt, the nightmares, was too much. That was the night I disappeared. They found my note in the break room the next morning. All it said was, "I'm sorry." My name is Dylan Parker, and I'm 26 years old. I've been working the closing shift at Walmart here in Albuquerque, New Mexico, for about 2 years. It's a quiet job most of the time, just stocking shelves, dealing with a few late-night shoppers. But recently, something happened that changed everything. I still don't know how to make sense of it. It was a Thursday evening, and the store was unusually quiet. I was in the electronics aisle when I saw him for the first time. He was tall, wearing a long black coat, and his face was covered by a featureless white mask. He was carrying a large black bag, just walking around the store without picking anything up or speaking to anyone. He gave me a bad feeling, like something was off. I watched him for a while, trying to figure out what he was doing. He would stop near random aisles and just stand there, not moving, just watching the other shoppers. Every time I got closer, he would walk away before I could say anything. I finally worked up the nerve to approach him. "Hey sir, can I help you with something?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He didn't answer. He just stared at me through that mask, his face completely blank. Then, without a word, he turned and walked toward the back of the store. I followed him for a bit, but eventually I lost him. He just vanished into the shadows. The next morning, I saw the news. A brutal murder had taken place just a few blocks from the store. The victim's face had been mutilated, carved into a grotesque smile. It was all over the local stations, and I couldn't shake the feeling that the masked man had something to do with it. Over the next few weeks, I kept seeing him. Sometimes it was just a glimpse of that white mask in the parking lot. Other times it was in the aisles while I was working. Every time I alerted security, they checked the cameras, but he was never there. It was like he disappeared the moment I noticed him. The murders continued. Each time, the same thing. Victims found with their faces carved into horrifying grins. The entire city was on edge, but no one could catch the killer. And every time I heard about another body, I couldn't help but think of that man with the mask. One night, after a long shift, I walked out to my car. The parking lot was empty, and the air was cold. As I approached my car, I noticed something odd. A large black bag sitting on the hood. My heart started racing. I knew what it was before I even opened it. Inside was a white mask, identical to the one the man had been wearing. And there was a note, scrawled in shaky handwriting. "You're next." I dropped the bag, my hands shaking uncontrollably. I looked around, but the parking lot was empty. I could feel eyes on me, like someone was watching from the darkness, waiting. I haven't seen him since that night, but I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there somewhere watching me. Every time I leave work, I'm looking over my shoulder, waiting for him to show up again. Because I know he will. And next time, I'm afraid I won't be so lucky.